friends, I'm Andrea Klim from TurnToTheStars.com. Welcome to this week's Astrology News Update. This is for the week of June 28th, 2020. So this week is going to be a week packed with astrological events. We're in the midst of eclipse season that's getting closer to concluding, but not quite yet. Early next week, we have the final of 3 eclipses taking place. This will be a lunar eclipse happening in the sign of Capricorn. And I'll talk more about this on Friday's show. And what you're seeing on the screen right now is a universal chart, which is displaying what I'm going to be talking in detail about today, which is the Pluto in Capricorn retrograde at 24 degrees and 7 minutes, where I'm pointing with my mouse. And we also have Jupiter right beside it at 24 degrees of Capricorn and 7 minutes. So this is a really important combination that's occurring for the second time during this retrograde period with Pluto and Jupiter. So I'm going to be talking in detail about that this week because this is something that is going to happen 3 times, and we're having the second conjunction. So I do think that this week in many ways sets the stage, though. As the moon grows in reflective light, so does our instincts and our intuition. This is the week the universe lets us know either where our work is or where our truth is that ultimately will give clues to more changes which are right around the corner. And I'm going to show you what that lunar eclipse looks like, because it occurs on Sunday, July 5th, 2020, Eastern Daytime at 12:25 a.m. So the night of July 4th is going to be a beautiful big full moon, and this is what we call a penumbral eclipse. So it's not a full eclipse, it's barely visible, but that's what we're looking for on July 4th, and that's what I'm talking about presently. So as the moon grows in reflective light, so does our instincts and our intuition. And so this eclipse is just right around the corner. Once we enter next week, and if you're sensitive to the influences of the planets, you may start feeling the lunar eclipse before the week is even over. So eclipses tend to bring a whole new perspective, quick changes, but also a sense of alignment with a higher vision for our life. And as I said earlier, this is the 3rd one of this summer. We had 2 in June 5th, June 20th through the 21st, and July 5th. So this is going to be occurring on a full moon, and it is in the sign of Capricorn. So as we're in the middle of these eclipses, we're invited to look to the root to understand where meaningful change can take place from the inside out. This is where revelations can show where our work has yet to be done. A big part of this is because of Jupiter and Pluto. Like I said earlier, I'm going to take and move my chart so that you can see this again. We have Jupiter and Pluto right beside each other, and I showed you earlier in the chart, earlier in the show, the exact time where they're exactly right side by side. And I'm just going to move the chart around so you can see that exactly by the hour. Well, it's probably going to have to go by minutes at this point, but that's pretty close right there. We've got Pluto and Jupiter right beside each other. So as I said earlier, this is a big part of the Jupiter and Pluto combination. These 2 planets will join together side by side 3 times this year. This will be, and they will be side by side this week, right around Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on where you are on this planet. These planets will have the second of 2 exact meetings, and the first was back in April, and the final will take place in November because these planets move on. They won't meet again until the middle of the following decade. Then these 2 planets will be in different signs. they'll be in the sign of Aquarius, but for right now, they're in Capricorn. These two planets connecting this week for the second of 3 meetings brings about a heightened awareness of the power of transformation and of powerful dynamics as they play out. Whenever the planet Jupiter joins up with another planet, it tends to magnify its energy, as is the case now. So both Pluto and Jupiter seem to be magnifying each other. Jupiter adds focus and emotional intensity. It brings topics, and it brings the energy of a planet it meets up with to a heightened point. Jupiter expands as it grows whatever it is that it touches. Jupiter's energy is high with the hope of changing social structures. This is what Capricorn represents. Change within corporations, change within businesses, change within government, which is part of the Pluto meeting Jupiter. This is an awareness of these large power dynamics and the way in which they can seem all-encompassing and all-powerful taking place. Capricorn is also an energy that is considered rather traditional. So we're going to have another phenomena that is going to fit in with this. On Wednesday, July 1st, and I'll show you what that looks like, Saturn will retrograde out of the sign of Capricorn. So I'm going to show you July 1st just so you get an idea. Let me just make a little adjustment here. Okay, so we see Saturn, and let's see by the hours of the day. You can watch right here Saturn as it goes backwards in time. This is July 1st. So we're back to 0 degrees, 2 minutes. It's very soon going to go right back into Capricorn. This is July 1st at 9:13 p.m. And there it goes. Saturn went back to 29 degrees of Capricorn in 15 minutes. That's July 1st. So Saturn's retrograding out of the sign of Aquarius and back into the sign of Capricorn. And retrograde is a time when we are reviewing things, where we're going back over things that have already happened. So in essence, we get a second chance to go over something that we've already experienced. And Saturn's about responsibility. It's about our work, what we take seriously. It's reality. So Saturn's retrograde out of the sign of Aquarius and back into Capricorn, and it'll be traveling backwards through Capricorn for a few months. In December, Saturn will leave Capricorn once again. It won't return to Capricorn for about 2.5 decades. So it'll be about 28, 29 years before Saturn is back in Capricorn. But for now, this represents a buildup of energy, a buildup of Capricorn energy. So this could play out in a number of different ways. If you think about it, it was when Saturn moved into the sign of Aquarius that social restrictions started to be put in place, especially on a worldwide level. As Aquarius is about the collective, it's about the whole, it's about the people, it's about uniting. And so Saturn has an especially restrictive energy. So when Saturn leaves the sign of Aquarius and moves back into Capricorn on July 1st, it could feel as if we are able to, in a very earthly way, as Capricorn is an earth sign, connect with each other in more practical ways. As Saturn retrogrades back into the sign of Capricorn, it could help to take some of the revolutionary energy around social movements and move that energy towards changing social structures. So there's going to be a little bit of a respite around the end of the year as Saturn is going to move back into Aquarius. Then next year in 2021, there will be a series of squares, which are challenging energy between Saturn and Uranus. So this energy suggests that the desire to go out and engage the world to want change. Social movements who are wanting change are going to become especially strong. But for now, the focus may start to shift, starting this week, towards understanding the things that hold societies and the skeleton of the world together. And as we begin to understand the strength of the structure and what's already been there, traditions that are long-lasting, we can think about the skeletons as being what's been hidden. This may be a catalyst to look exactly at that, at the dynamics under the surface, and to bring them forward. But we're going to notice that our collective focus starts to shift as the Capricorn energy grows for us all. But there is a brightly lighted response from all this very serious energy of Capricorn. Capricorn is a very serious energy, as it's ruled by the planet Saturn, which is very serious, very strict energy. So what's happening here is there is a beautiful alignment that the Sun and our retrograde Mercury are going to be forming to Uranus. And so I'm very encouraged by this. And you can see that happening right here. I'm going to circle it with my mouse as Mercury comes together with the Sun and it sextiles Uranus. This is a harmonious aspect, so it's something that gives us some sense of relief. This actually happens on June 30th. So I'm going to go back to June 30th just to show you exactly what that looks like. Okay, so there's June 30th, and there they are at 9 degrees together, right beside each other, and they're forming this sextile, which is a very nice connection with Uranus. So both of these planets are forming what we call an opportunistic and harmonious connection with Uranus. And astrologers, we call this a sextile, and it ultimately suggests freedom, change, joy, and there'll be a sense of things changing and moving in a more fortunate direction. This will motivate us to take action. We could feel as if we are moving into a more promising future. Mercury and the Sun are moving through the sign of Cancer. You can see the sign of Cancer right here. Cancer has to do with the home, with the family, in a more personal sense, and there's a great sensitivity. This also brings an understanding of where we're from. It brings an understanding of what it means to be a loyal citizen. Every country has things that are held as part of its identity, things that they're fiercely proud of and hold on to. These are things that define them as a nation. And it's Uranus' energy flowing here toward freedom that ultimately brings an equalizing principle. It encourages us to recognize the spark that is within us all. So, with Uranus making a harmonious aspect to Mercury retrograde, it encourages us to again reconsider and reevaluate. Now, Mercury retrograde, Mercury is about the way we think, the way we communicate. That's the energy around Mercury. It helps us to make decisions. It rules over the way we make decisions. And when it's retrograde, we're going backward in time, so to speak. It's really an optical illusion, but we are going backward over some of the same area that we've already traveled since the retrograde, the foreshadow of the retrograde. So to have this type of aspect with Uranus, which is actually the higher vibration of Mercury, which rules our intuition and our inventiveness and change, it encourages us again to reconsider and reevaluate. And that's the best thing to do during Mercury retrograde. And Mercury retrograde lasts through July 11th. So this is a time that we're not meant to make decisions. We're meant to research, review, revisit. Those are the best ways to work with this energy. So if you end up signing a contract or making a decision, you will definitely be going back and reviewing it. Uranus's energy encourages us to do things in new ways. This process is lit up by the energy of the Sun. This adds much more power and purpose to what is being reflected on and taking place now. From a more individual level, we may find that opportunities that were there early in the early part of June, which have been only those may have only been a suggestion, will come back around. These opportunities may start to materialize or become more clear, because the ground that Mercury covered from the beginning of June till it went retrograde is what we're currently going back over right now. Mercury's going to go back to 5 degrees of Cancer. So that's going to take us, we've got a little bit more to go here. As I said, July 11th is when Mercury goes direct, and we'll feel that energy. We'll be able to start moving forward with the things that we've reevaluated and revisited. So, as I said, early part of June, these are the things that we're going back over. And those could have only been suggestions. So these opportunities will start to materialize or become more clear. Then we can embrace these opportunities to move our lives in a more fortunate direction. Now, Pluto's energy invites us to go to the underworld, to dig deeply, to look at what otherwise would be hidden. It influences us to examine more fully the underlying motivations of our own actions and to figure out what's really going on under the surface. And, Pluto is a very powerful planet. It's the farthest planet away from us here on Earth. And it's a planet that wants to be in control. Its energy wants to control everything. So if you're in a Pluto transit, you know it, because you don't have control in your life. There's things that Pluto's energy is wanting you to let go of and accept this transformation. And that's what's happening on Earth. We're all in a major transformation. Our government, all the things to do with Capricorn, our government, our businesses, big business, our careers are being affected massively at this time. So, as I said earlier, Pluto influences us to examine more fully the underlying motivations of our own actions and to figure out really what's going on under the surface. So now let's examine the energy of Jupiter. Jupiter's energy is about going out into the world. It's about believing. Jupiter is pure optimism, expansion, and opportunity. It invites us to get out into the world in order to welcome those opportunities. On the surface, they may seem to be contradictory energies, but they're really not. So, in Greek, this is an interesting fact. In Greek mythology, Jupiter and Pluto were siblings. They were brothers, so they came from the same place. And so even though we may think that being out in the world doesn't necessarily mean reflection, it's only through reflection that we're able to make sense of what it is that we consider worthy of engaging in. It's only by understanding our deepest reasons that we're able to secure what we're pursuing from a more authentic place. So it's going to be a period in time like this and a celestial environment like this that encourages us individually to get to the truth of what we really want and why we want it. We'll have an opportunity through Saturn's retrograde while it moves back to be beside Pluto. We're also encouraged to take responsibility during this time for our actions, to understand our responsibilities, and to move towards the happiness that we desire. Saturn encourages the changes that we desire to become clear as what is worth sacrificing for, and maybe what it is that has served its purpose. If we're being honest with ourselves, there will be meaningful transformation which allows growth and brings closure. So a more optimistic future needs to happen as part of understanding reality with a work ethic that integrates together to move us forward. This conjoining of powerful planets in the sign of Capricorn is going to help us to do just that. So I made an interesting observation about Venus. Venus is now direct. It's in the sign of Gemini at 5 degrees. So she's finding her way to move forward as she's been retrograde since around the beginning of May, and she just woke up last week. So now she's moving ahead, and Venus represents love, relationships, our money, our value systems. In the sign of Gemini, it really affected our minds, the way we think, the way we communicate. So it's been a love of gathering information and an attractedness to gather information. Gemini is all about data. It's about curiosity. It's about communication. So now we're moving ahead with these things that we've revisited where Venus had taken us back over. And so it's going to make it's not going to be making any major important planetary alignments for about a month. Venus will connect with the asteroid, and I don't have it turned on. Let me turn it on right here. There it is. You can see this is Chiron, an asteroid, and it's in the sign of Aries. So Venus is going to connect with this asteroid. She's moving over the same path as I talked about earlier, as she did in the middle of April for the third time. So what's happening now may reflect what was happening back in April. It was much more personal, much more of a private reflection, and that much more of an opportunity for us to find personal clarity as to where we are in love and why we feel about it, how we feel about it, because of the current alignment between Venus and Gemini and Chiron and Aries. We're also bringing a level of healing to ourselves. So let me move that forward so you can see that particular configuration. So if I go forward in time, you can see Venus forming a sextile right here to Chiron. And that's about healing. And that's about finding ways to heal and integrate matters of love from the past, relationships from the past. Now it's time to embrace a more optimistic and loving future. What I love most about this week is the harmonious energy of Uranus sextile the Sun and Mercury retrograde. And you can still see that happening right here by July 3rd. It's beginning to separate a little bit, but it's still there. And as I said, it's making its second of 3 sextiles to Uranus. This energy is amplified. And the reason for this, that it's making its second of 3, is because of Mercury's retrograde. We get 3 opportunities during a retrograde to revisit things, to review things. And it gives us power of, logic, to be more logical and more reasonable. And one of the things that's said about Mercury retrograde is that it gives us a means to a brighter future. So basically any retrograde does that. So the energy is going to be amplified due to the added sun shining its light on this sextile. Even though Mercury is retrograde, there's times when Mercury retrograde can work to our advantage. This could bring us back to see clearly opportunities we thought were lost. This helps us to take another look at where opportunities we thought were lost, and to take a second look at what might have appeared as being lost. This could bring a fortunate turn of events that does transpire. This could allow us to follow up on an idea. This could allow us to understand what we could do in our own time, in our own space, to move toward practical changes, personal happiness, and personal satisfaction. This is a week that can be a beacon for more profound changes coming next week with the lunar eclipse. It's the practical rewards that we're aligning with now. So I want to thank everybody for watching. Please subscribe to my weekly newsletter at turntothestars.com and share with others if you found this information helpful. And of course, if you want to know how all this energy influences you in your personal chart, contact me at turntothestars.com to register for a personal reading. I'd be glad to be of help on your life's journey. And P.S., I have a wonderful group who I've been teaching the language of astrology to for the last 2 months, every Thursday evening via Zoom. They're entering their 3rd month of the beginning education of birth chart interpretation. So I want to congratulate each of them for their hard work and desire to understand the language of astrology. If you're interested in joining a group class, please contact me at turntothestars.com and we can talk about the upcoming classes. So just a reminder, it'll be in December that Saturn will move back into the sign of Aquarius for a nice long stay right until March of 2023. So there's a lot of time to further explore Saturn in Aquarius and how that's going to affect us all. So again, thank you for joining me today and for your trust. Thank you again for watching. It's going to be a great week. Remember to turn to the stars and you'll find your answers there.